Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome. Thank you so much for all your lovely comments to yesterday's video. They really do mean the world when you share your thoughts, etc. So thank you very much. So this was the card that I made yesterday. And as you know from the video yesterday, I mentioned that the stamps only arrived yesterday. So what I find is that as soon as a set of stamps arrive, the more I use them, the more inspired I become to use them more again. Now, after I'd created this card, I then started thinking. So I'm now going to create another card with the Hydrangea. Now, let me just move this. We created this yesterday and I said I was going to come back and add to this card. I'm still going to do that another day, mainly because this is what happens when inspiration takes over. You're inspired to go, to make something differently. So I'm going to create something again with the Hydrangea, the Hiya Drangea. And I'm going to create something with this stamp again because as soon as I made this, I thought of another idea, and that's what happens with stamps for me. Right, so we're going to move that out the way somewhere, and then what I'm going to do is begin with another piece of card that is 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches, pink frog smooth card. Now, I've done this technique in a video that I did with a red card, but what I want to do again is show you how you can make it look completely different. So what I'm going to do is start with my Reinkers. So I'm starting with speckled egg Reinkers. Now, if you haven't got Reinkers, you could use your sprays, take the lid off and just drop a little bit onto your card. These are very concentrated, so I like to use these because you get a real concentration of colour. Now, before I start, I know I'm going to need a piece of copy paper. So, right, and I was able just to cut a few bits out very late, early hours of the morning, just to, so that I hadn't got to do too much cutting out during the video. But I really haven't had time to sort of prep, as in, you know, I know exactly what I'm doing, so I'm going with the flow. All I've done is cut a few bits out. But I know that this stamp, there's just so many possibilities. So what I'm going to do, give those a shake. You've got a ball bearing in the bottom. And what I'm going to do, as I did with the red card, I'm going to drop a little bit of the speckled egg. And I love this because, let's see if I can just lift this up. It's the tiniest little dot of colour because it's so rich in pigment. And I'm just going, as I did with the red card, I'm just going to create some spidery effects. Now, I think it was the lovely Fiona said that she hadn't got one of these puffy things. So I said, you can use a straw. Just remember, never, ever, ever use a straw with alcohol inks, ever. So it's okay to use it with these, but please make sure that you blow. But I just love using these. Or if you've got one of those cans, you know, where you can put like it's pressurized air sort of thing, you can use that as well. So what I'm doing, what you can see is I'm using the neat colour. And I always start off with the neat colour and just create the spidery effect with the neat colour until I feel like it can't move anymore. So I just create the little rich spidery effect just until I think, well, it's lost a bit of the movement. So when I feel like it's lost a bit of the movement, I'm going to add a tiny drop of water. And I don't add too much. I just add little bits at a time. And what that does is, because I'm adding little bits at a time, it allows me more control over what I'm doing. Just gives me more control. So I can add a little bit, look, literally a tiny drop of water. I don't want to, you know, sort of lighten the colour too much, but because I've got that water on there, I've now got further movement. But as you can see, it will dilute the colour. But if I keep some of the rich pigment as well, it's like you get a couple of colours in there. So it just gives me more control over the movement. I love doing this. And to be honest, I'm one of those people that I could spend ages just making sure that it goes exactly where I want it. Now, I've already got one of these backgrounds dry, because I did this, to be honest, I did it at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I've already got one of these backgrounds dry, but then I'll have this card to create, this background to create another card. So I keep going until I get really fine spidery effects, and I keep changing the position of the card and the puffy just to get, let's lift that up, a beautiful spidery effect. Just love it, like a web. Right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use Shaded Lilac, and again I'm just going to use a drop. I love that you only use a drop. It does make me smile. So that's Shaded Lilac that I've got all over my fingers. Let's just get that. I've got these wipes that are just made from water, but boy, is it a challenge to get them out the packaging. Right, so I've got a nice, so I'm starting with that neat colour. And again, I'll just move the card. And you see, you get the spider effect, but you're using neat colour. So the spidery, the sort of web effect, it doesn't flow as much initially with the neat colour because you've got to add a little bit of water. But it still sort of works with the tiniest amount of colour. But because you've got that highly pigmented colour, you hardly need any water just to make it flow. Tiniest bit of water, and you make it, you get that spider effect. And each background is obviously going to look completely different because you can't predict where it's going to go. What I like about this is you've got control, so you can make it go where you want it to. There is slightly more control by doing it in this way. Now, you can do this with alcohol inks as well. And I'll have to do that one day as well. And I will do it not on Yupo paper. So I will have to do that. So again, you can keep adding a little spot of water if you want it to move a little bit more. Just keep doing that. I love the little noises it makes. But you get it, an absolutely wonderful, let me show you, wonderful background. I just love it. And then I'm going to use Wilted Violet. Now you can use the colours that make you happy. Use whatever, you know, whichever colours bring you joy. Or, you know, they're your favourite colours. that bit spidered it nicely there. So again, just going with that neat colour. And to be honest, I really think this little implement's worth it. I got this one from Amazon. It wasn't very expensive at all. And I know Tim does one as well. But I can't remember. I think I got this for like £4. But I've used it so much. I have got the Tim one as well. Well, you would expect me to have more than one, wouldn't you? So then I'm going to add one little blob of water. And what that does with your little blob of water, you get some more finer, spidery web effects. Let's just move that out. And if you think, oh, it's not quite moving a little bit enough there, then you literally go in with a little tiny bit of water. Now, you can obviously use a lot more water than I'm using, but I like the fact that I've got a little bit of control over creating a random background. I like the fact that I've got some control. Just a little bit there. And it means that I'm creating sort of a random background, but with a little bit of control. Oh, I love this background. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Now what you've got is a beautiful background. Now what you need to do is let that just rest a little bit and let it do its thing. And I've got one I created here beforehand, and you can see this one's further up here, this one's slight. It's just beautiful. I love it. Now what you need to do is once it's rested a little bit, you'll come in and you'll just blot the colour. Now I blotted this yesterday. I'll show you with that one a little bit later, but you'll get some surface colour that's on the surface because you've got that highly pigmented colour of the oxide, or whether you use distress inks, and it just lays on the top a little bit because it's highly pigmented and you've only used touches of water. You can see my bottle has got a little bit of ink on there. We don't want that. Right. So you just need to make sure that you give that a little bit of a blot, just to make sure you remove that pigment. So you can see from the lid of my Distress Oxide Reinker, I've got it all over my fingers. Make sure you put the lids on. Where's that coming from? Make sure you put the lids on. And you can probably guess why I'm telling you to make sure you put the lids on. You guessed it. I forgot to put the lids on and not one of mine over. But there you go. Right, so we're going to place that on one side, and then we're going to grab a piece of card, and you can see I've done a little bit of stamping here on this card. What I want you to do is ink the Hydrangea Stamp Up. Now I showed you yesterday how to split it apart if you wanted the imagery separate. So we're just going to take this. Now give it a really good inking. And I tend to use the A5 acrylic block just because it gives me the ability to have the flex. If I put this on an A6 acrylic block, it'll fill the whole acrylic block. And the thing with that is then I haven't got this spare room here just to lever the acrylic block. My hands look attractive with that bit of purple on. Right. So just allow that ink to sit on there. And then you've got that acrylic block that I can just leave it, just so that you make sure that you've got most of the image. Now, that is beautiful in its own right. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to cut the Hydrangea out, and I want you to cut the number 2 out. And then what I want you to do is stamp this again a second time as well, so that you've got this. Let me show you. So you can see I've cut the Hydrangea out and I've only made it a short stem. And the 2 leaves at the bottom, which were here, I've cut them off because I'm going to use them. So you've got your Hydrangea like this, and you can see, come on camera, I've cut a few of the flowers out separately, just to give it a little bit of dimension. And you can see I've done that here. So just so that you can see, let's tilt that down a little bit. And what I've done is I've got the stamped layer, then I had the layer that I cut out as a whole, just as the flower, like I did yesterday. And then I just added some of those small flowers just on the top, just so that you can see. There you go, you can see that nicely there, just so you can see that. And I want you to cut out the number 2 as well, so that you've got the number 2 like this. Okay, so what I did is I used my new Inktense colours, and this is the Amethyst, and I literally went over the whole area with my pencil and literally just blended the colour out like so, and just scribbled the colour over. What I'm going to do now is take the pencil, pick up a little bit of colour. Please don't soak this pencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few more little darker areas, just to a few of the petals, just that are sticking up. And it just works beautifully, having a few of them popping up. And you don't have to cut the little flowers out exact, just so that you've got a little bit of the flower just popping up a little bit. So I'm just adding a little bit more depth of colour, just to a few of those that are just popping up a little bit, just to give a little bit more darkness of colour. And that's what's lovely about hydrangeas. When they flower, unless you've got the white and cream ones, they sort of, as they age, they go darker. It's lovely. Right. And like Rebecca mentioned in one of her comments, you know, flowers, to some of us, particularly, you know, like Rebecca or me, they have a significance, or they mean a lot to you because they were bought as gifts for you, or you even took cuttings from relatives' gardens, etc., and they have a special meaning. And I have plants that have been bought for me for birthdays as well, so they do have a special meaning. I mean, my garden brings me so much joy anyway, as does crafting. So you can see just that you've got that. So you've got 2 layers and then a few little areas where I've cut extras just to make them stick out. And what I did was, you know, I was up till early hours of the morning, mainly because I couldn't sleep. It was so hot. So I just spent some time cutting out those little flowers, or you could just do that in front of the TV one night. Okay, so that's our flower. Let's move that out of the way. So then what I want to do is take my containers stamp. So I'm going to use containers stamp set 401. And I knew when I did the containers stamp, when I first did it and it was on its own, I knew that it was going to be one of those stamps that I just kept bringing out, you know, at different stages of releases. So I'm going to take this one. There we go. And I've got that cut out. So I've got our little vase here. Right. So I'm going to use a little bit of the Bulb Gazette. Just take that. Just add a little bit of text. So I'm just going to use the grey Morning Mist. Morning Mist, yes, I had to question myself then. So I'm just going to take that and just add a little bit of stamping. Just love that. I'll lift that up just so that you can see that. Just so you can see, it's got a little bit of the Bulb Gazette just on there. Let's move that out of the way. Right, so then we'll bring in our background. Now, before I do that, let's bring in the one we've done in the video. So you've got that one here, and you can let it rest as much as possible. You know, this, you can still the moisture there, but what you need to do is, let's take another piece of card actually. Let's take another piece of 4.5 by 6.5. And what you need to do is blot the colour that's just resting on the top. And you'll see that's just resting on there, but I'll use that as a background, even just those tiny bits of colour. So just blot it a couple of times and then either give it a dry with your heat tool or just allow it to dry naturally. I let mine dry naturally overnight, but you can just dry it with your heat tool. But now I've got, and believe it or not, I've got another background. Absolutely got another background. So now I've got another background, I can use that, and I absolutely will. Right, so I've then got that for another time. And this is the one we're going to be working on. So what I'm going to do is just, I want to play with the composition. So this is going to go here. I bet I didn't leave my greens out, did I? And the pot is going to go here. And then the number 2, first of all, the number 2, Tracy. So putting the number 2 down. So I want to just find the placement. So it's going to go like this. And the pot like that. So now I've changed the stamp all over again. So what I'm going to do is place that, let's adhere the number. What you can do is just add your adhesive. Oops. And what I would suggest you do is just place it initially. Don't stick it down, just so that you can judge. Yeah, that's fine. Just so you can judge whether you've got it in the right place. And then you can press that down. Sometimes I use a piece of copier paper. And then if any of that adhesive squishes out, I can just mop that up with the copier paper. There we go. And then this will go here like so. And that will go here like this when I've adhered it. But you can see, again, it looks totally different. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of stamping. And as I've used that Bulb Gazette on the vase, I'm going to use that. So I'm going to try the Morning Mist, and just see how that appears. So obviously I want it, yes, that's beautiful, so that I can see it outside of the hydrangea. Let's just do a little bit down here. So I just keep placing the hydrangea down just so I can make sure that I'm going to see some of that stamping and still my background. Oh yes, that's lovely. Love that. Right. So what I can do then is take some of my white cotton and just add some texture. So you can see I'm taking quite a bit of cotton. Let's move that out the way. You'll see me do a lot of pull it out the way, put it back, but that's what I do when I'm doing a composition. So you can use your ultra thick gel medium, whichever is your preferred adhesive. And I'm not going to squash this down too much, just so that it's got that dimension. I adore this. I'm then going to, now I'm not treating this like it's a vase, you know, as in it's got water in. I'm treating it like I've got like a one like this shape at home, and it's solid so you can't see through it. I'm treating it like that. And then let's just have a little bit of washi. I do love how the washi tears nice and easily. This washi is number 44. It's got so many beautiful words on it that go with my designs, and it's called Around. So I'm going to just hold that there because I'm terrible. So let's just put the little vase, container, whatever you want to call it. So I don't need to draw the stem in because for me, it's one of those, for this one, it's one of those that's like a solid vase. There we go. That's it. Let's just bring that up again. I'm just going to switch my fan on a little bit because it's rather warm. Just to cool me down a little bit. Right, oh, I love this. So I've got the word hope that I can just tuck in here. Oh, love that. And obviously I'll keep messing. And then I've got these leaves here that I'm just going to add here like so. So I'm not going to add any green to the leaves because I don't want the green to clash with the colours that are here. It shouldn't do because green goes with everything. Let's add a touch of green, because if you're ever worried, what you need to think about is nature. And if you think about it, green is all the way through the garden and it goes with everything. So I'm going to use this mint leaf. This is a new colour, 1240. I don't think I told you what colour the amethyst was. Amethyst is 0735. So I'm just going to add a little touch of this colour, but I'm not going to add much at all. Now I need to make sure that that brush is clean because we know it's got that amethyst colour on there. Oh, that fan is lovely. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the colour. Let's just add a little bit. So it's sort of going to be, you know, a little touch of colour to the leaves. If you want to colour yours totally green, that's entirely up to you. I just want to leave a little bit of white space. So I'm just going to pick a little bit. So I'm sort of using a wash of the colour, just so it's a little touch of the colour, not too much. Oh, that fan is wonderful. So what I'm going to do is then take a little bit more of my adhesive and then just take this. And what I'm going to do is add that then sort of over the vase, because when I add hydrangeas, because what I do is I cut the hydrangeas later in the year when they've been in the garden and they're sort of going over slightly. I cut them and then I put them in a vase with no water and they just dry and they look lovely, and the leaves always overhang the sort of vase. So just so that you can see, just love that. Right, so then I'm going to take, let's put the bulb Gazette away. And I can hear you saying, good grief, you're putting a stamp away, Tracy. Let's just put that away. And just, oh no, I need that set. So now I want the little bird, the Quill Ends. So the Quill Ends, and I'm using stamp set 908. There we go. I just need a little piece of card just to add my little bird. Let's just move that out of the way. There we go. Just to stamp my little bird. You know, I need a few more hours in the day because I just have so many ideas. Let's just cut this card down so we're not working with such a big piece of card. And just remember your good habits. If you're going to cut something out, just give that a blot with your paper. And I'm just going to cut the bird out. You can use the pen nib if you wish. See, I've got an idea for using the quill ends and using the whole stamp. I just need more time. Right. There we go. Let's bring in our lovely bird. What I'm going to do is just add a little bit of the amethyst just to my flower. Again, I just need to make sure that's clean because I've used the green colour. Just blend that out a little bit, just there we go. Just brings a touch of colour to the little flower just in there. And I'm going to add a little bit of the pin flare glue, or fair, because I can't get my words out. I think that's a little bit much, Tracy. That's it, just spread it out a bit. And just add the bird here, just so he is raised a little bit. Obviously don't want to hide my word hope. So I want him facing here because he goes better with my composition. Normally I have him facing my flower, but not on this occasion because of the composition. Now, you could also have a little bird or a little mouse just sitting here in the number 2, but I just don't want to overpower the composition too much. Just add a few splatters. Now, if you're splattering and you're just buying a new Posca pen, make sure, for one, you give the Posca pen a good shake, and 2, you pump it onto your non-stick craft sheet or onto a piece of card, because then you can do that puffy thing, just to get the paint flowing. And when you've got the paint flowing, hold it at the end of the pen here, and obviously hold it with a bit of strength, and then flick. And it works quite nicely, but it won't work nicely unless you get the pen flowing. It needs to be flowing first. So just so that you can see this, just love that. And then on my piece of card that I stamped, the sentiment is there: collect beautiful moments. There we go. So collect beautiful moments. That's it. So I can use that then as well. I can just put that over my vase like so. I'm trying to be a good girl and I keep putting the adhesive back where it's supposed to go, and then I forget where it is. What a poor old soul I am. Right. So what I'm just going to do is hold that in place just for a few moments. Just so that grabs a hold. Just takes a few moments for it to grab. So I just need it to grab. As you can see, not quite grabbed yet. It has on this side, but not on this side. There we go. Just remove a little bit of that adhesive. Move this just out of the way. Now also, where's the, actually use the bigger scissors, but you see these also as well, which are from an old vintage ticket. The reason I added these is, I'll show you. So then these little numbers can then be added to the top or the sides of your card. So they become embellishments. There's always a reasoning behind things. So I'm just going to add that 2 there. And then if you wanted to add another number, so say I want to add a 6. Take the 6. Just chuck it along there because I'm good like that. Now if you want, you can add them on the side of the card like this, but then I can just add this one to coordinate with that one up there. And this is why I think it's important that as a designer, I come along and explain to you what my thinking is behind my stamps. So I'm then going to take a little bit of the grey Inktense pencil and just add a little bit of shading here. a little bit of water. Just add a little bit of shading underneath the pot. And then we'll just add a little bit of shading to the number, take off the excess. Just a little bit of shading, there we go. A little bit of shading here, and obviously where I touch that purple, it's going to activate it, so I'm just being very careful just to not activate it too much. Right, what I'm going to show you is, let's just turn that fan off. Just going to show you, I've used the numbers from the stamp set. Let's bring in the stamp set. So this is what the stamp set looks like. And this is what I've created. Just so you can see. Just tilt that down a little bit. Right, let's add this to our card blank. I love that background just from touching it onto the excess. Right. So the more you create, the more it gets you, it gives you ideas. It does for me anyway. Sorry about putting my arm across the camera. Right, so let's now add these to our mats. So now, with that little ticket on the Hydrangea, I've now got more embellishments. So I've got embellishments like these. They're a bit like ephemera, these little numbers here. Can you see? Just brilliant. Love them. So I'm going to add the black card to a 5x7 card blank. Just let's make sure it's opening the right way. The black mount brings in the number that is black and the bird. There we go. And I think that is lovely. Just so that you can see that. I just love how that's turned out. And again, you've made your stamp look different to yesterday's sample. Just so that you can see that stamps can do so much. So that is completely different to yesterday's sample. Just so you can see that. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And I look forward to seeing your interpretation when you get your stamps. Now, I think the stamps are coming back on the TV on Friday, the 16th. I think it's 3 and 7 p.m. So if you missed out on the stamps, there's still a little bit of stock left. And you can go, let's have a look. So I can go to createandcraft.com. And if I go to the day that they were on, which was the Thursday and Friday, and you can see on the Thursday, if you click this that calendar icon, you go to 6 o'clock in this show, click on, and there's the bundle, and you can see the bundle here of the stamps. There's the Hydrangea, and if the bundle's too much, let's go down to 8 o'clock again. Go down to the singles, click on the Hydrangea, and you've got the Hydrangea stamp there. So thank you for watching and thank you for your support. I'm absolutely loving the release and I will be back with more inspiration. So love to all, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.